Hey everyone, and welcome back to Joey's Retro Handhelds. I'm Joey, and today we're going to be ranking every single device that came out in 2023. And I just mean all of the ones that I've had my hands on. So anything that I've done a review for, or that I've ordered and purchased and had in my hands, or anything that's in my house. So I'm going to go through the whole entire list and we'll talk about everything in a bit more detail. Let's waste no time and just jump right in, and we're going to start with the honorable mentions. And for me, these are devices that didn't come out this year, but I still use quite a bit. First up is the Analog Pocket, and I love my Pocket. It's a top 3 device for me this year, and in blue, it's just fantastic. The absolute best way to play Game Boy and Game Boy Color games with no competition in any price tier. This is one of those devices that you don't really appreciate until you have it and see it. So if you ever get the chance to see one in person, do it. You won't be disappointed, and no, an IPS screen mod on a Game Boy Color is just not comparable. Not even close. And then we have the Anbernic RG35XX. It came out in December of 2022, so it just missed the cutoff for this video. But it got new life in 2023 thanks to custom firmware in Garlic OS and Kuriki and all of the other ones that have come out. This went toe-to-toe with the Miu Mini Plus for me this year and only lost out due to Wi-Fi. I really wish the Wi-Fi version of this would have come out already, and I know it's going to be out now, but as is though, I use my Miu Mini Plus more anyways. But I really do like the 35XX, and I'm curious if the 35XX Plus will be any better. Now, before we get into the actual list, let me list out a few devices that I just didn't get in this year for different reasons. First is the Powkiddy RGB 10 Max 3 Pro. You forgot about this one, didn't you? It's okay, so did everybody else. It was the best Linux device to 5 Powkiddy fans for a day, and then no one talked about it ever again. Firmware apparently is still not good enough, even months from the release. I was supposed to get one of these sent to me in October, but it never arrived, which is fitting as I'm pretty sure even Powkiddy doesn't remember this exists. Just look at the lack of reviews for it, and I think you'll have your answer on this one. Although I did try to get one for review, if only to just see how bad it is. Next up is the Anbernic RG Nano. I had zero interest in this from the start. I was offered it for review, and I should have went ahead with it, but I just considered it to be too small to be usable, a gimmick, and a novelty. I have a Miu Mini on my desk, and even that I don't find to be usable. I still regret saying no to it, as I've made a decision to review anything and everything, good or bad, to avoid being the type of reviewer that just skips handhelds they don't like. Then we have the AYN Loki Max. I actually had this one in my hands, and after the Loki Mini Pro, I just had no real interest in reviewing it. I should have done something with it, but it's a bit too late now. I do think that after they dropped the price, in that kind of 1 month window before the Steam Deck OLED and the ROG Ally dropped their prices and all of that, it was a good purchase, but maybe right now it might not be the best option for a lot of people. I completely forgot about this next one until I just started filming, but the Ayaneo Pocket Air. Not much that you can say about the Ayaneo Pocket Air, but the Odin 2 just came out and obliterated it. It's kind of obsolete, no reason to purchase it. It's limited quantity, there's no support past that. It's basically just a dead device. And as far as Ayaneo goes, you can add all 572 other releases they've had this year to this list of just I don't care, and you're not going to see them on today's list, except for one that I actually had in, but the rest of them, Ayaneo doesn't do things that I care about. And then I'm just going to group all of the e-waste and clone products together. So the XU10, the M17, and all of those types of devices. I don't even know what the brand names of these are or who makes them, but after reviewing the R35S and getting the R36S in, I just don't see a reason to spotlight any of these devices. I know that there's people out there with extremely tight budgets, but this ain't it, Chief. We stick to brand names for SD cards. It's time to do that with handhelds too. Lastly, there's a few devices that just haven't made their way to me yet or haven't come out yet. And that's the Miu Mini Flip, the Anbernic RG35XX Plus, Steam Deck OLED, and the Lenovo Legion Go. The Steam Deck OLED is a revision, so it wouldn't show up on this list anyways, but the other three, if they happen to release and ship within 2023, then unfortunately they're just going to miss the cutoff and will probably be on next year's list. I'll make sure to add them. So without further ado, let's get into the actual list here. And I want to set up a disclaimer that, again, this is my personal list, my personal opinions, my personal feelings on all of these devices. So if I happen to not like a device that you are in love with, then don't hate me for it. It just didn't resonate with me for whatever reason. So just keep that in mind as you listen to all of these, that again, it's just my personal list and personal feelings. Okay, let's start with number 21. The worst device of 2023 is the Datafrog SF2000. I'm not even going to show B-roll of this device. We're just going to look at my guinea pigs for a whole paragraph because I just don't like this device at all. This is just an awful, awful handheld. I don't care how cheap it is if it really can't do anything. With the screen tearing, not being able to play Super Nintendo properly, and honestly just everything else, I'm not even going to bother with the rest. I'm net negative in my life for even talking about this device that people convinced others was a good purchase. It's just $10 is never a good reason to buy something that doesn't actually do anything. I'm sorry, but I'll just never be on that bandwagon, especially for retro handhelds that I use for hours and hours. I feel bad even throwing it into the garbage, as I feel like the garbage is too good for it. The R35S and R36S come in at number 20 on my list for having the worst controls out of any device I've ever used. Nothing good at all about them. The most stiff controls I've ever experienced, and I don't care that there's a massive cult around these devices who somehow think that this has the power of a PlayStation 5. These aren't good devices, and I actually consider the Powkiddy RGB20S to just be better in pretty much every way except for the screen by a small margin. I got the R36S in and promptly did the button mod for it, but I just find it to be a waste of time when I can just use a better device that doesn't need mods right out of the box. At number 19, we have the Ayaneo Air Plus. This was a $1,000 device with baby buttons, switch sticks, down-firing speakers, weight and balance, and more. This device is the biggest pass in the history of passes, like basically every recent Ayaneo device. Ayaneo's CEO was quoted as saying, "They want to make the best handheld in the world. And if that's their goal, and this is their output, they have another century to go." Coming in at number 18, it's the KTR1. I don't really know where to start with this one. It has an awful D-pad, awful buttons, and I had a broken trigger right out of the box. Every time you mention a negative for this device, we're told that it's fixed in the next shipment, and then it never is. At some point, you just have to review this thing as is, and I did, and it's not good. But the screen is nice, and so is the shell. We really just needed an actual brand to make this device for it to be usable at all. The best thing about this device is the long-famed quote by the maker Nil: "When the KTR1 launches, everyone will forget about the Odin." And that was made about the Odin 1. We've had the Odin Lite and other revisions since then, as well as the Odin 2 and those models. So it's a kind of funny statement looking back on it now. Number 17 on our list is the Powkiddy X55. It's a large handheld with low power. I still don't understand the reason this exists, besides as an actual instrument in a band with how loud it is. I get that there's people out there that wanted a big screen because of eyesight, and this is for them, but I just don't consider it to be a good handheld in any way. Plus, with the revisions this went through and the fact that I had a newer unit with an older screen, it just made this device a big no thanks. I don't even want to do this one. The Retroid Pocket 3 Plus Metal Edition is number 16 on our list. I'm really curious if I would have liked the plastic version of this, but I never got a chance to get one. One of Retroid's major faults is how locked down their supply chain is, and it really limits their global presence as well as the ability to get review units, since they just don't send them. However, the ergonomics aren't great on the 3 Plus, and the metal version was just not good. They just slapped on metal without considering the consequences of doing so. The color was fantastic, but the actual design of this handheld makes it not worth it at all to me and should just be forgotten. This was a bit of a famous video for me as I really didn't want to do that review at all, and my intro became a meme in the Discord and is now used in other handheld reviewer videos. Most of it was just because I was angry at the fact that I paid so much for a device that I was super excited to get and ended up hating it a lot. I'm really hoping the design on the Retroid Pocket 4 improves on all of this by just using the Retroid Pocket 2S design. Number 15 on our list is the Powkiddy RGB 30. Probably the most overrated handheld of 2023. It has a nice screen, but terrible comfort and ergonomics and a not great D-pad. The sticks are functionally useless if you're going to be using the triggers at all, and I have no real interest in Pico 8, shoot 'em ups, or anything this screen is really doing with the 1:1 aspect ratio. I had no idea how many people liked Pico 8 until this handheld came out. Fans were popping out of the bushes and everything and just screaming, "Pico 8!" Suddenly everyone was just a Pico 8 connoisseur. To me though, the TrimUI Smart Pro is just a better device in every way in comparison to the RGB 30, and that became my choice. Number 14 is the Sony PlayStation Portal. The Portal is just disappointing to me altogether. As someone who should be the target audience, given that I utilize streaming almost daily in my house, it missed the mark. It didn't do anything that other devices can't do already, and it didn't do it better. For $200 it's just not worth the cost for me to only play a single system and not play it better than any other device I own. At number 13, we have the Absolute. It's underpowered, even for streaming devices, but it's the cheapest streaming device with the largest screen. However, it has Switch sticks, which the competition doesn't. Otherwise, this is just fine. I don't hate this device, but I don't love it either. And with how much I've converted to streaming this year, I see it as a good budget option that's just right in the middle. I hope that Absolute takes a hard look at the competition for its next handheld, and tries to push a boundary in some way, as there isn't anything on this device that's exceptional or eye-catching. 12th on this list is the AYN Loki Mini Pro. It's heavier than I'd want a budget Windows handheld to be, and power-wise it wasn't bad. The software, however, was bad, and they didn't even bother adjusting their control panel to match the processor. People complained that reviewers didn't understand the chip, not understanding that the software wasn't properly set up for this chip. I shouldn't need to read through white papers to know what your device can do. Comfort was great, the sticks, D-pad, and all of that were great. It's a shame they don't make it anymore. But it does look like the Zero is similar for the most part and cheaper. I skipped the Zero for this model, and I doubt I'll go back and review the Zero, as I just don't see where that device fits in either anymore. 11th on my list is the Powkiddy RK 2023 Wi-Fi Edition. I actually really like this device except for the D-pad. If it had a proper D-pad, this would have shot up several spots on my list and likely been a device that I still use. As is, it's a bit of a forgotten device, but it's one that I hope that Powkiddy iterates on, even if we know they won't. The RGB30's design in this form factor with the curves would be a great thing to see. Nowadays though, it's basically obsolete, and other devices have just replaced it, and it's just no longer a good value purchase from a price perspective. But it was a nice, comfy device, and it did what it set out to do, and that's what I want to see from Powkiddy. And now, let's jump into the top 10. Number 10 on my list is the Anbernic RG Arc. The Arc is really cool. This device is single-handedly making me like fighting games, and I never have. It's super comfortable, has an awesome D-pad, awesome buttons, and it's just an absolute joy to use for its specific use case. The fact that I can even use it on my computer as a controller is just an added benefit. For me, this device makes the top 10 by the sole fact that it surprised me by just making me like a genre of game that I had zero interest in. So it deserves a spot on this list. Number 9 on this list is the Anbernic RG405V. It's no secret that I just did not like the sticks on the RG353V, and I found them to just be functionally useless. So then here comes the most powerful vertical handheld out there, and they did awesome work on design, comfort, and ergonomics. They also made the sticks actually usable on a vertical device for the first time ever. The ease of just pushing the back buttons is a concern, but otherwise I really like this for a vertical device. There's just something awesome when you can draw a line from previous releases to this one to see how Anbernic innovated and how much they listened to feedback, compared to a company like Powkiddy that just throws darts on a board and goes with that design. 8th on my list is the TrimUI Smart Pro. This came out of nowhere. The D-pad, face buttons, screen, comfort and ergonomics are just awesome on this. I'm a really big fan of it. It needs some software improvements and little quality of life additions, but otherwise this is a staple in my collection right now. My main issue here is the bait and switch they did with pricing. Some people were able to get this at $64 or lower, which is absolutely the right pricing area for this to be in, until they raised the price to $90, where it's just gonna die in obscurity. And that's a shame, because this is actually a really good device, and if they had kept that $64 price point, it would be a top contender across the hobby for best valued horizontal device. Next up at number 7 is the Anbernic RG353PS. This was the most comfortable device on my list until the TrimUI Smart Pro came out. I had to use this quite a bit when my RG405M died when the screen popped out, and I absolutely love this form factor. A Super Nintendo style device that can actually play Super Nintendo. Who knew that was possible? ArcOS is great on this for custom firmware, and the PS model is the best of the 353 series by far in my opinion. This unfortunately ended up getting overshadowed by the Retroid Pocket 2S release, since it just unfortunately no longer matters because of the price, and from a value perspective. But I'll forever be keeping this device. I just wish I had the gray model instead, and that's the 353P model. At number 6, we have the Asus ROG Ally. The Ally is and continues to be the best Windows handheld that you can buy, with no competition, and I've tried most every Windows device out there. The screen, the sticks, the buttons, the triggers, the sound, and everything all in one package just makes it top tier. I love this handheld a lot. I went through basically this entire year with this as my main Windows handheld device, and it's just fantastic to use. I don't know when an actually good successor or competitive device will come, but I'm hoping we get something smaller when it does. And now it's time for the top 5. The 5th best device of 2023 is the Anbernic RG405M. Surprised you there, didn't I? You likely thought this was a shoo-in for first, and trust me, I thought so too. But then the devices after this came out, and this got pushed down a little. So despite the fact that this, for me, has been mostly replaced by now, I have a soft spot for the RG405M, and I still consider it as one of the best this year. Actually, I still consider it as one of the best devices that Anbernic has ever made. The comfort, the ergonomics, the buttons, and everything in this small package is just a joy to use. The 4th best device of 2023, and in my opinion, the absolute best valued handheld that you could buy in this hobby, is the Retroid Pocket 2S. Remembering again that this is my personal list, but if I was ranking for the community as a whole, this would likely be 3rd. The 2S is a better option than what's going to be next on my list for most people. Either way, I still can't believe this device launched at $99 US. The price for what you get in this package is just insanity. Analog triggers, Hall effect joysticks that aren't switch sticks, great sound, great size, great buttons, and everything. This, for me, is the exact definition of retro gaming in a handheld, and I will continue to point to this device as the perfect entry spot for our hobby. The 3rd best device of 2023 is the Retroid Pocket Flip, my absolute dark horse of the year. The handheld that I went from having zero interest in, ever, to the point where I didn't buy one for review or even cared about reviews, to getting more and more interested in over time and finally just buying one off Discord. I will forever point to this device as the reason Retroid should actually send out review units, as if more people had received this, I think it would have done a lot better. I love the Flip so much that when I broke it trying to swap Skittle buttons in from my Retroid Pocket 2S, I instantly purchased a brand new one at full price from Retroid's website. This is my favorite pocketable handheld of the year, and the one that comes with me everywhere I go. The benefits of a clamshell can't be understated. I close the lid, I throw it in my bag, and off I go. The screen is fantastic, the size is great. This is just a really good handheld. I love my Flip, and I'm super happy that I got one. The 2nd best device of 2023 is the Miyoo Mini Plus. The Miyoo Mini Plus is just top tier in so many ways. The addition of Wi-Fi, the awesomeness that is Onion OS, the versatility of this device with bringing it anywhere, and having the power to run so many different systems, and continues to run even more with the addition of Nintendo DS. It's fantastic. It's not an ergonomic device by any stretch of the imagination, but nothing beats it for portability and one-handed use, while still being completely functional. I absolutely love my Miyoo Mini Plus, and I use it a lot, and it's one of those devices that will just forever be in my collection. And now we have number 1, and this is probably not a shock to anybody at all. The absolute best handheld of 2023 is the AYN Odin 2. And it isn't even close. The Odin 2 is just one of those devices that comes out and you're enamored with it enough to change everything about how you play games. This was the device that finally convinced me to just ditch any Windows handhelds and go full local streaming for all my gaming needs, and it's fantastic for that purpose. We have a huge battery that just doesn't die, an extremely comfortable and ergonomic device that's lightweight and sized properly. Then you add in the power to play up to Switch natively, the sticks, the D-pad, the buttons, the triggers, and everything, plus it's blue, and you just have a perfect package. This is the type of device that just makes me want to quit YouTube and just go play games and just stop all of this. Because you get that sort of feeling that you've made it. We're here, we have everything that we need. What else can we even do now? Because whatever comes out next is going to be compared to this. And this is a tough bar to pass. Also, when we have hardware that's surpassed software, we need to wait a little bit for that to catch up. So it's going to be a weird next year or so. That's going to be it for this one. I hope you liked the video, and again, before you angry comment, remember that this is my personal list, my personal opinion, and just how I feel on what I think is the best this year. Every reviewer is going to have a different list, so I suggest just watching all of them, putting together information, and seeing what comes out. But if the data frog shows up on anybody's list in the top 10, unfollow that person. Just kidding, but not really. Don't forget to like and sub to help the channel grow, and hope you all have a good one.